So thanks very much for having me. I would like to start today with a story, and this is a story about the 7 generations. And maybe you know this, but this is a story, a teaching actually, that is found within many indigenous cultures. And it is about the impact that we have as human beings on our surroundings and on our environment, and also on the generations to come. So it goes as follows. Every human being is 5 generations. We experience a generation of our grandparents. We experience the generation of our parents, our own generation, the generation of our children and of our grandchildren. So in a normal human life, you experience these 5 generations. So, but then there is also a 6th generation, and that is a generation of the people all the people that ever came before you. So this is your ancestry back to the beginning of time. And according to the indigenous cultures, we must be aware of that and we must respect them. And then there is also a 7th generation. And this 7th generation consists of all the people who are not here yet, who are yet to be born. So these are the generations that come after us until the end of time. Now, the Native Americans say we must make our decisions with the 7th generation in mind. And we must be aware of the impact that we have with our actions today on these generations. So this is about the children of our grandchildren, or the grandchildren of your own child. You know, so that is where the 7th generation starts. And today, I would like to explore with you what that means. What that means within our own circle of influence, within IT. So how can we, within IT, make sure that we care for the 7th generation by becoming climate aware and by reducing our IT carbon footprint? Because that helps the generations after us. Now, I am an ambassador of climate awareness in IT, and today we are going to talk about finding ways to a green future. I'm also a Scrum Master at Alliander at this moment, a freelance Scrum Master. And I started this journey about 1 year ago when I worked at a Rabobank, and I started this conversation with my teams because I was personally wondering, what is the carbon footprint of our applications? Because we had already solar panels on our roof. We had already bought a hybrid car. And I was feeling frustrated about the limited impact that we made with that. And then I was like, maybe we can do something at work. And then something started, and we started to do planet retrospectives, and it grew. And many other teams wanted to do it as well. So we investigated our carbon footprint and actively reduced it. And one team even reduced it by almost 45%. So pretty cool. So today I would like to inspire you to think big and also make it really practical. And we are going to do this first with a little exercise. And this is also an exercise about the 7 generations, because this story places us within a continuum of time, and it places us in a place that we feel the interdependency of the generations, right? But how do we expand our vision like that? And this is something that we can really practice. So the exercise that we're going to do today is about expanding our view in the long term. So getting a long-term vision. Because most of us are not used to looking very far ahead, right? And also most companies are not used to that. So I would like to ask you to stand up, please, and to couple up with your neighbor. So if you would please stand up and find a neighbor or somebody else that you can couple up with. Yeah. And then first decide who is person A and who is person B. Person A is the 7th generation, and person B is the great-grandparent. So one of you is the great-grandparent of the other. Okay, so now I would like to ask you to look each other in the eyes for a moment and be silent. So please silence and look each other in the eyes and really imagine that this person is your great-grandparent, or that this person is your great-grandchild. And the question is, and let this sink in, how does it feel to be a great-grandparent of this person? And what is there something that you wish, that you really wish for this person in the future? Okay, is there anything that comes up? Maybe is there somebody who would like to share? What do you wish for your great-grandchildren? Yes?
I wish that the world wasn't so complicated.
You wish that the world wasn't so complicated. Thank you. Yes? There in the back?
Starship will be flying to Mars.
Starship flying to Mars. Yeah, great. And then I saw another hand there. Yes?
I wish that the world still exists.
Sorry, you wish?
That the world still exists.
You wish that the world will still exist. Thanks. Okay, thank you very much. You can be seated now. Now, I think it is really important to have a vision about what we wish for the generations to come, because that the world that we are living in is not a very positive at the moment. So we need to keep a vision in mind and the future that we want. So the planetary challenges that we face are of a magnitude and of a complexity that can easily make us feel overwhelmed. And focusing on these challenges can even become an obstacle in itself to start acting, because it can make us feel numb and make us feel that we can't make an impact. Now, I think these are pictures of like the last few months. New York covered in ashes of the Canadian wildfires, and floodings happened all over the world, and scientists delivering final warnings, and yeah, the heat is rising exponentially. So we must also keep in mind that these environmental issues have only become mainstream issues in the past 2 or 3 decades. And ever since then, people have been trying to act on this, and also with success. So there is also positive news. But the thing is that everything that you are doing, now there are a lot of renewable energy already, there's electric cars, there are things that already work. But we are still fighting against the current in this, and this is because our economic system is biased towards efficiency and towards growth, right? But it needs to become biased towards reducing our environmental impact. So, but the good news is that if we do something, we can have impact. So if we remember and envision the future that we want, we can step up our game and work for it. So, but how are we going to find ways to a green future? As I said, we have to see to consider our own circle of influence. So let us have a look at a challenge. The challenge is to keep our climate safe and stable enough for life to thrive on Earth. Now, we need to do this by cutting our carbon emissions. And this means that every team and every company needs to turn the lens on themselves and see how are we impacting the planet. According to scientists, we have until 2030 to drastically cut our carbon emissions. And I don't know if you are familiar with what actually the carbon does, because we can see carbon as a blanket around the Earth. And this is actually a natural process. This is to keep the heat, to keep the warmth of the sun on the Earth. But now, because we are pumping these huge amounts of carbon into the atmosphere, the heat just can't go away anymore. So we need to stop doing that, right? So, what does this all have to do with IT? Now, our data centers consume at this moment about 1 to 2% of global electricity. And including device production, this is up to about 4%. But the thing is that our footprint is growing. And by 2030, data centers could consume as much as 8% of global electricity usage, according to the Harvard Business Review. And by 2040 is expected to account for 14% of the world's carbon footprint. So this is a problem that we really need to tackle, because this is the situation. We need to be climate neutral by 2050. And what I just said, in order to reach that goal, we must cut our carbon emissions by at least 55%, according to scientists, in 2030. So that gives us 6 years. Yeah, so that is something to consider. Now, but if you see, the trend is going up, but we need to go down, and that is quite a gap to bridge. So, as I said, as I mentioned before, our current model is based on economic growth. And this is not only economic growth, but we have also seen technical growth and growth in every sense of the word in this period of time. And this model has brought us many riches. And without this model, we would not have the technical capabilities and the wealth that we currently have. So it has brought us a lot. But at the same time, it has brought us on the brink of climate collapse. Now, some values that this model is based on is consumption, independence, but independence in the sense that it doesn't count with the things that we have impact on. Abundance, we have never had as much as abundance as we have in this period of time. And it's also defined by short-term thinking. And if we translate this to IT, we see that the value for the customer is our primary goal, right? So we want to deliver value for the customer, but we don't look at the environmental impact of the value that we bring. We have short hardware life cycles. We maximize performance. We have endless data storage, and we don't think about what this does for the environment. And the amount of waste, I don't know how it is in your company. What I have seen in my teams is that there was a lot of waste. And when my team started to investigate this, they were like, yeah, we have all these test environments running. We have idle servers running. We have redundant backups that we actually don't need. We save our log files and we store them forever. But that is not necessary. So they started to look through this other lens, and that helped them to clean up. Now, as I said, this period of economic growth has brought us a lot, but it has also brought us on the edge of climate collapse. So we need a new model. So we need to shift to a period of balance, to a period where it is not only about consumption, but about sustainability. And sustainability means taking care of the needs of all within our planetary boundaries. It is also about interdependence, about being aware of the impact that we have with the things that we do, and about balance and long-term thinking, what we just practiced. Now, if we translate this to IT, then you see that we can find ways to balance the value that we bring for the customer with the environmental impact. So we can start asking questions. Okay, so you want maximum performance, 99.99 performance uptime, but what does that bring? Do you really need that? Does the customer really need this? And at what cost for the environment? Not only at the cost money-wise, but environmentally wise. So we also need to build a sustainable tech culture. And what does that mean? That is also about asking these questions about building green architecture, about a mindset of zero waste, where we build value, but with the planet in mind. So that we build value, but as carbon efficient as possible. Now, a way of embedding this in our tech culture is this ecosystem for sustainable Scrum. Now, the goal of this is to really embed a way of sustainable thinking into our companies and into our teams. So, if you look at this, we can, in our roles as developers, as product owners, as Scrum Masters, we can embed sustainable way of thinking in our roles. So as developers, how could you do that? You could add green practices and tooling to your development standards. As a product owner, you can include sustainability in your product vision. And as a Scrum Master, you can grow this culture of sustainability and help getting these goals and these visions and ambitions across. But as IT teams, we can't do this on our own. We need our companies, right? So that is what you see here on the outside. We need, from our IT management, we need guidance and we need principles on green architecture. We need them to provide us with green tooling. How cool would it be to have a tool that that can investigate how carbon efficient your application is? We also need climate metrics. We need metrics on our carbon footprint. We need metrics on the value metrics on business sustainability. And of course, we need a vision from our companies. We need a vision, ambition, and a long-term goal for the 7th generation. So these are all models, but how do you actually get started with this? Now, what I learned at Rabobank is a few things. And one of that is to start identifying your low-hanging fruit. Because the first team that I did my planet retrospective with, this was just a brainstorm. We called it a planet retrospective. It was a brainstorm about what can we do to make our IT environment more carbon efficient. And it was really a far away from our bed show because we had never considered this before. But we discussed this and the team said, yeah, we have a lot of legacy components. If we decommission some of our legacy, we can easily reduce our footprint by maybe 10% or maybe more. And then they decided to take one first step, and that was to investigate their carbon footprint and to make an energy label for all their applications. So a really cool idea. But it was so big that they never got started. There were always other priorities on the backlog. And that taught me something to make it smaller, to define actions that are so small that you can pick them up in the coming sprint. So then with another team, they decided to first dismantle one environment that they no longer used. But they really did, it was small, but they did it. And they consistently kept sustainability in their way of working. And that is a team that already has reduced their footprint by 45% now. So make it small. How do you start? By just starting the conversation. You don't need to be an expert on sustainability to start a conversation. And also what really helped us was to add the planet as a stakeholder, literally. We added the planet as a stakeholder in our sprint reviews. So every time in the sprint review, the team would report on what they had done for the environment. So the stakeholders would also become aware of this and ask about it. So, yeah. It is asking about asking new questions. So what I also just already mentioned, what is the performance that we really need with our application? What is the availability that we really need? Do our applications need to be available at night times, in the weekends? Maybe we can switch them off. Do we need the redundancy that we have? Or do we maybe overdo it? And have you considered the waste in your own IT environment? So these are ways that you can start just by asking questions about this, by looking through the sustainability lens. And if you do that, you make your surroundings aware of this as well. So I really love this picture. Maybe you know it. It is about the first step that is really the hardest. So what do? Well, this is also what we learn in Agile. Break it into smaller steps. Make it as small as possible, but get started. It's important to have a plan. It's important to have a big goal and to have a plan, but it is even more important to get started. So break this into small chunks. And especially with a problem as climate change that is so big and that the magnitude of this can overwhelm us, always the solution is to find our own circle of influence and make it small. So, does anybody know this picture? This is Harry, this bird is hanging upside down. This is the guy in the team that is asking all the weird questions, right? He sees the new perspective, but the other people don't see it yet. The other birds are like, what the hell is this guy doing? Harry is always crazy, and they ignore him. Most of the birds, they just ignore him. They're like, oh, that's Harry again. And then there are two other birds, and they are curious, and they are intrigued by Harry, and they will be his early adapters. They will be the birds that will be hanging upside down as well soon. And then the others will follow. Right? So I find this really, really inspiring picture and also funny. But I think let us all be Harrys, right? And become climate aware and have a positive impact on our teams and on the environment. And also on the 7th generation. So if you would like to continue with this, but you don't know how, you can always ask me to do a Planet Earth as a Stakeholder workshop. I give these workshops where I help teams to get started with this. And here are some inspiration and resources that I used. So if you would like to know more about sustainable IT, I would really recommend this book, The Sustainable IT Playbook for Technology Leaders. This is a really great overview. It's quite a new book. It's the best book that I have found so far on this. There's not very much to be found yet on this topic, so please go get it. I also used the book The Good Ancestor, and that is not specifically about IT, but about long-term thinking, so very inspirational, building a new tomorrow, but also, these are not books, but websites, the Green Software Foundation. They have a lot of resources, and sustainableIT.org. So have a look at those websites. Then also I have the agileplayground.com Growing Green. There are some ideas that you can use on that, planet@stakeholder.com, and find me on LinkedIn, where I often share inspiration about this topic as well. And not to forget the stickers. I do have the stickers. So grab one if you like. Thank you very much. Yes.
You're not doing questions, right?
Oh, if there are some questions, if there's still time for that?
Yeah, we have some time.
Okay.
We can't do them all, but do we have a hall of shame for companies claiming sustainable but aren't at all when it comes to IT? Or a positive version, Hall of Fame?
Great idea. Let's make one. Yeah, let's do the Hall of Fame then. It's a bit more positive, right? But if I can add something, because I think we're talking about greenwashing here, right? The Hall of Shame. But I think also this is a transition period. So if companies do greenwashing and they say that they are sustainable but they are not, at least they know that they should do something about this. So they will grow into becoming really sustainable, is my hope.
Thank you. Do you have examples of metrics you use and/or discuss with your teams?
Yeah, we used energy use metric. So, yeah, that was basically the metric that we use for climate impact.
All right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But if there are other ideas on how to do this and for good metrics, then please come over to me, because I would really like to discuss this and learn about this as well.
Next one is how do you get zero waste? Won't there always be some waste?
Yeah, I'm afraid so.
All right, I think we have time for one final one.
But it's a great goal, right? It's a big, hairy goal. Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
But oh yeah, and by the way, but if you get circular and if you use the sources of, for example, of your hardware, and maybe then we can close that cycle, right? And maybe there will also be some waste, but we can drastically reduce it.
That's interesting. Yeah, maybe. We have time for one final question. How do you stop voting?
Stop voting.
Okay, the top question is, can carbon neutrality align with economic growth, or is it fundamentally incompatible?
That is really a philosophical question. Yeah. I would almost say, what do you think? What do you think? I don't know. There is this whole degrowth movement that says that you can't align carbon neutrality with economic growth. I'm not sure.
Well, it's the Harry, right? The bird.
Yeah, that's.
Some will start and find value, and then
let's find out. Let's find out.
All right. Thank you so much.
It was my pleasure. Thank you for having me. Thank you.